Hi, everyone. Welcome back to our Mental Health Mondays. I am so excited for this topic, especially as we head into the holiday season and as we already are in the midst of the holiday season as well. And we are working through a lot of family and friend parties and engaging with a lot of people for us to really recognize signs of unhealthy relationships. And so we have our community partner here today with us. And without further ado, we'll look forward to hearing about these signs.
Hi, everyone. So glad you could join us today. I'm Dr. Mitchell Sanabria. I'm a postdoctoral fellow with the Institute on Violence, Abuse, and Trauma. And today we're going to be talking about signs of healthy and unhealthy relationships. Some of this information you might be somewhat familiar with, some of it might be completely new. Like Dr. Rogers said, this is definitely, I would say, especially relevant with the holidays coming up, being around friends, family, and other people in our lives. So this is definitely a very helpful and important information to be aware of. Our learning objectives for today. So briefly, I'm going to go over the types of relationships, but the main focus will be on the signs of unhealthy and healthy relationships, and then go a little bit deeper into fostering healthy relationships. So, learning about the signs, and then it's like, what do we do next? So I'll be covering a little bit about that. All right. So types of relationships. And keep in mind, this might not include all types, but these are typically the most common. So types of relationships typically fall into one of these categories: family, friendships, acquaintances, romantic, sexual, work, or situational relationships. It's important to recognize, too, that each of these might look different across cultures and regions. What some people might consider to be, traditionally a family may look different elsewhere, or it might look different from person to person. So again, it's important to be kind of mindful of those differences. And the signs we're about to get into definitely applies to any type of relationship. So it's important to be aware of that as well. So again, going into the signs of unhealthy and healthy relationships. So keep in mind some of the things that I'm going to be talking about today are primarily based on Western values and beliefs. However, they still might apply to other cultures. And again, these apply to all relationships. Again, considering culture, which is incredibly important. Um, it's important to recognize that these signs can be displayed by anyone and occur anywhere. But again, it might look different across different cultures or regions. So it's important to be mindful of that, and to not just make assumptions about certain behaviors. And I also want you to be aware that I'm not going to be able to address everything in this presentation, but I am going to cover more the common indicators of these healthy and unhealthy signs. So, what comes to mind when you think of unhealthy relationships? Um, when did you learn, what is considered to be a healthy or unhealthy relationship? Did you even learn about this before? Who told you? Did your parents talk to you about it or model it through their behavior? Where did you get this information from? Did you learn it from TV, movies, or the internet? Did you learn it from your friends, your school, or church? Again, we learn about relationships, from a variety of different sources, and at different periods of our life. So again, it's important to be mindful of these. So some of the things I'm about to discuss today, again, maybe you've never even considered these things before, or maybe you haven't fully recognized it, and that's okay. This is, again, an opportunity to learn and to work on improving your relationships as well as developing personal growth. So to get into the 10 signs of an unhealthy relationship, so again, it's important to recognize that, while everyone does unhealthy things sometimes, we can all learn to love and care better by recognizing those unhealthy signs and shifting to those more healthy behaviors. If you're recognizing those unhealthy signs in your relationship, it's really important to not just ignore that. When we tend to ignore those problems, they tend to become a lot worse, and escalate matters, especially over time. So again, it's important not to ignore them and understand that it, again, can escalate to abuse. And of course, if you think you are in a dangerous situation, trust your instincts and get help. And we're going to touch on getting help later in this presentation as well. So one of the first signs of an unhealthy relationship is intensity. So when someone expresses very extreme feelings and over the top behavior that feels overwhelming, so, somebody might, rush into a relationship really quickly. They might pressure you to move in really quickly or get married or just basically do anything that makes you feel uncomfortable that you're not ready for. They may want to move at a very fast pace, and that is not a pace that's comfortable for you. You might, even go along with it, but might also feel uncomfortable or overwhelmed by the nature of their intensity. And again, this could lead to a lot more problems later on. When we run into a relationship very quickly, we may not fully know that person. We may not know everything about them. And that may not start developing until, we move in together with them or are with them in that relationship a lot longer. Then some of these other issues might be more recognizable. Possessiveness. So this is when someone is jealous to a point where they try to control who you spend time with and what you do. So in this situation, they may not want you to spend time with friends or family, and essentially keep you away from everyone. Or they may get upset when you're spending time with other people, even people you've known for years. And again, that includes family. They might, be upset and uncomfortable about that and try to find ways so that you're only spending time with them. Manipulation. So when someone tries to control your decisions, actions, or emotions, manipulation could take a wide variety of forms. Again, we may not always recognize something as manipulation. Again, we might, just want to be supportive of our partner, and kind of go along with what they ask of us. But again, sometimes certain things may not feel comfortable or may not feel right. Or we may feel like we're being kind of like forced or even tricked into doing something that we don't want to do. So again, it's important to be mindful of that. Isolation. So this kind of ties in with possessiveness, but it's when someone tries to keep you away from friends, family, or other people. Again, limiting your contact and interaction with others. And this kind of allows that person to essentially prevent you from getting help from others, from seeing, other types of healthy relationships, sharing your situation with other people. Again, isolation, they just want to keep you all to themselves and prevent you from getting that help that you might need in that situation. Next is sabotage. So when someone purposely ruins your reputation, achievements, or success. So again, like this might be done for a variety of reasons. And again, it might even tie in with some of the other signs I just talked about. But again, like if they sabotage your reputation, no one's gonna, or people are gonna have a harder time believing you and what you say, and more likely believe the other person. Or again, they might minimize your achievements or success, or find ways to put you down or to ruin that. Maybe they're jealous of your success, so they want to ruin that for you. So again, that's something to be mindful of as well. Belittling. So when someone does or says things to make you feel bad about yourself, this could be name calling, they're always telling you that you're doing something wrong, just constant like put downs. And again, things that just don't make you feel good about yourself to the point where maybe even you start believing those things. Next one is guilting. So when someone makes you feel responsible for their actions or makes you feel like it's your job to keep them happy, they might, expect you to do anything and everything for them. And then if you don't, make you feel really bad for it. Or, try to find ways where they do make you feel like you're responsible, even when you're not. Again, we're not, responsible for necessarily the feelings of others. We can support other people, and it's nice to have those people in our life, but we're not entirely responsible for how other people feel and to keep them constantly happy. Volatility. So when someone has a really strong, unpredictable reaction that makes you feel scared, confused, or intimidated. So again, relationship could be going great, everything's fine. And then seemingly out of nowhere, they just snap at you. Maybe they'll yell at you. Maybe things get more physical. And then next thing you know, immediately after, they're nice again. And, that could be very confusing. Hey, this person who I love is, they've been nice to me and kind to me and have done all these things for me. And now they're being more mean and aggressive. Which again could be very scary. And, it's like, I don't understand why they're doing this. And then once they start acting nice again, it's like, oh, okay, things are fine. Only for this to essentially happen again. Deflecting responsibility. So when someone repeatedly makes excuses for their unhealthy behavior, there's always a reason for it. They're not actively doing anything to address the issues. There's always someone else to blame. Oh, just because this is how like my parents raised me. Oh, I'm just stressed out because of work. Whatever the case might be. So instead of actually addressing the issue, they're using their treatment towards you as an excuse to avoid responsibility. Betrayal. So when someone is disloyal or acts in an intentionally dishonest way. So again, you have, someone you have a relationship with, and, maybe they're constantly lying to you. They're setting you up for failure. They promise to do one thing and then they don't. You might be relying on them for something and they say they're going to do it and then they just don't follow through. And again, with this is more intentional. So, obviously like accidents happen, other things come up. This is very different than like, if somebody promised to do something, but then like an emergency came up. With betrayal, it's very intentional. It's also important to recognize that unhealthy behaviors can escalate to abuse. And there's different types of abuse. This isn't everything, but this is some of the main ones that you might be aware of, or maybe not. Maybe some of these things are new to you. But some of the issues that have been discussed include physical abuse, emotional abuse, sexual, financial, and digital abuse, sexual coercion, reproductive coercion, and stalking. So again, it's important that, to recognize those warning signs of abuse. So at the start of any new relationship, it's not always easy to tell, if it will become abusive later. Things could be going really well for weeks or even months, and then all of a sudden things change. So with that, it's important to keep in mind that many abusive people or people who are abusive in relationships might appear like ideal partners in the very beginning of that relationship. So those warning signs of abuse don't always appear overnight, and they may emerge and intensify as the relationship grows. It's also important to consider that every relationship is certainly different, and domestic violence does not always look the same. However, one feature shared by most abusive relationships is that abusive partner usually tries to establish or gain power and control through many different methods at different moments. And again, that might include physical abuse. So this is usually one of the more easily identified types of abuse. Again, it usually involves physical violence or even threats of it in order to maintain power or control over an individual. And because of this, survivors are afraid and uncertain when more abuse will occur. Again, this often reinforces the regular use of other more subtle types of abuse. And keep in mind, some of the unhealthy signs that I just talked about might tie into some of these as well. So, for example, emotional abuse, this is non-physical behaviors that are meant to control, isolate, or frighten someone. These behaviors are often more subtle and hard to identify, but are just as serious as other types of abuse. And, stuff like that can include even like that name calling, constantly putting you down, things like that. Sexual abuse. So when this occurs when a partner controls the physical and sexual intimacy in a relationship, this often involves acting in a way that is not consensual and forced. So again, you're not giving permission and they're still, doing things that are inappropriate and against what you're wanting. Financial abuse. So this may not always be recognized or even considered necessarily when it's happening. But this typically occurs when an abusive partner extends their power and control into your financial situation. So they might have control over all your bank accounts, credit cards, even money that you're making from your job goes directly to them. They pay all the bills. They decide how much money you get or don't get, which could obviously, limit your ability to get help, to engage, with others, to spend other time, with friends or family, or do other things that you enjoy. Digital abuse is the use of technology and the internet to bully, harass, stalk, intimidate, or control a partner. This behavior is often a form of verbal or emotional abuse, but it's conducted online. And then sexual coercion, it lies on a continuum of sexually aggressive behavior. It can range from begging and persuasion to forced sexual contact. But even if your partner isn't forcing you to perform sexual acts without your consent, making you feel obligated to do them is still sexual coercion. No matter what type of relationship you're in, you never owe your partner intimacy of any kind. Again, consent still matters even when you're in a relationship with somebody. Again, something that may not be, typically talked about is reproductive coercion. So this is a form of power control where one partner strips another of the ability to control their own reproductive system. It could be difficult to identify this form of coercion because it often is less visible than other types of abuse occurring at the same time, and may appear as pressure, guilt, or shame about having or wanting children, or not having or wanting them. And then stalking. So stalking occurs when someone watches, follows, or harasses you repeatedly, making you feel afraid or unsafe, and may occur from someone you know, a past partner, or even a stranger. This can include different types of abuse as well. So what comes to mind when you think of healthy relationships? So again, for the most part, the factors for this I'm about to talk about are essentially the opposite of the unhealthy ones. But I think it's helpful to ask yourself questions like, when did you learn about what a healthy relationship is? Who taught you? Where did you get this information from? How do you know if a relationship is healthy? Do you think that you're in a healthy relationship right now? Do you have healthy relationships? So again, these are all important questions to kind of ask yourself to help you identify, what is unhealthy and what's not, or what's healthy and what's unhealthy. So 10 signs of a healthy relationship. So healthy relationships bring out the best in you and make you feel good about yourself. They don't have to be perfect, or, and no one's healthy 100% of the time. We get tired, we get hungry, we might slip up, we might say things that we don't mean. But in healthy relationships, when we do make those mistakes, we're very quick to repair it and to make amends, recognize, when we've made our mistakes, and talk to the other person about it to address the issue. And again, these signs I'm about to discuss, these are things that you should strive for in all of your relationships. Healthy relationships manifest themselves as healthy communication, which I'll talk a little bit on. But in order to have a healthy relationship, you need to love yourself first. So some of you may have heard the expression, like, you can't pour from an empty cup. Again, it's important that you're taking care of yourself to ensuring that you are ready to manage these relationships. And so here are some characteristics and behaviors of a healthy relationship. And again, these are essentially the opposite of kind of what I talked about for the unhealthy indicators. So comfortable pace. So the relationship moves at a speed that feels enjoyable for each person, regardless of, how fast the relationship moves, both of you feel comfortable with it. Some people might move in, after a couple months. Some people might take years to move in together. Same thing with getting married. Maybe both of you agree you don't want to get married, or maybe, you want to get married after 6 months, or maybe wait 5 years. Everybody's different. The important thing is that you're both on the same page. You both feel like you're moving at a comfortable pace. Nothing is moving too fast to the point where, again, it's making you feel uncomfortable. Trust. So trust is obviously key with any relationship. So this is having confidence that your partner won't do anything to hurt you or ruin the relationship. So again, being able to kind of count on that other person, knowing that, you could talk to them about certain things, and they're not going to betray that trust or share certain things with other people that you want to keep private. Or again, it might even go towards like reliability. So like, hey, I'm trusting you to follow through with this, and they do. Honesty, so you could be truthful and candid without fearing how the other person will respond. Sometimes it can be difficult opening up to people, especially about very private or personal matters. Sometimes we might want to share something or talk to someone about something that maybe we're already kind of judging ourselves about, and this is somebody who we feel supportive, and we're able to open up to that person, talk to them, share those things about ourselves, and the other person isn't going to judge us or criticize us. So we feel comfortable being honest with that individual. Independence, you have the space to be yourself outside of the relationship. So, you're allowed to live your own life. If you want to spend time with friends or family, you could do that. If you want to go to work or school, you could do that. If you just need some alone time, you can do that too. Again, in healthy relationships, independence is okay. If both partners are okay with that and they're happy with that, it's fine. And again, if a partner is trying to restrict that independence, again, that might be a cause for concern and worth talking about. Respect. So you value one another's beliefs and opinions and love one another for who you are as a person. So again, you don't have to agree with what everyone says. You don't have to believe the same things that everyone says, but still offering that respect is really critical for healthy relationships. Equality. So the relationship feels balanced and everyone puts the same effort into the success of the relationship. Again, this doesn't mean that you're exactly matching everything that you do for each other, but again, there is that sense of balance. You don't feel like, you're give, and they're take. Things feel very equal. You don't feel like you're doing necessarily more than the other person. It feels balanced, it feels comfortable. Kindness. And of course, again, this is important for every relationship. So you are caring and empathetic to one another and provide comfort and support. Again, this is critical and necessary to maintain any healthy relationship. So kind of keep that in mind regardless of the type of relationship or what setting you're in. Taking responsibility. So again, the opposite of that, avoiding responsibility. So owning your own actions and your own words. And then healthy conflict. So openly and respectfully discussing issues and confronting disagreements non-judgmentally. So again, you're not always going to agree on everything, and that's okay, but you're able to have those discussions and talk through them in a way that, is respectful and supportive. Again, you feel comfortable being honest, and you trust the person as well, that you're able to resolve the conflict in a healthy manner that doesn't escalate to more unhealthy behaviors or even abuse. And fun, you enjoy spending time together and bring out the best in each other. So this is something that might even be overlooked or not really thought about so much. It's just something that kind of happens. But again, it is mindful that you are having fun, with people who you have relationships with. And then here's just kind of another example that kind of shows healthy, unhealthy, and abusive indicators on a continuum. So very similar to what I discussed before. This is just kind of putting it all together so you can kind of see it all on the same screen there. And so getting into fostering healthy relationships. So, I went over the signs of healthy and unhealthy relationships. So like, what do we do about it? So I'm going to briefly kind of touch on some of these things. Some of these things you may have already learned about. I know some of these topics have been covered in previous Mental Health Mondays, so I'll briefly kind of go through some of these things. But again, it's important to recognize what to do when we're recognizing these signs, or if we just want to help make our relationship better. So one key thing is communication skills. So communication is, the key to any relationship. If we're not communicating properly, it's going to cause a lot of problems. If we're not communicating directly, openly, and honestly with people we're in relationships with, it's probably going to cause miscommunication, misinterpretations, and a lot more problems. If we're not giving them all the information they need to accomplish something, like, again, that might cause problems. If we're only giving them partial information, that might cause problems. And also the way we talk to people can be an issue as well. So specifically thinking of communication skills, and again, there's so much more that could be discussed about this. So I'm only touching briefly on these specific areas, but passive, aggressive, and assertive communication. Again, it's really important the way that we talk to other people, regardless of the relationship. So passive communication. So basically, you're prioritizing the needs of others and kind of ignoring your own needs. Again, this can cause a lot of stress and anxiety, lead to a lot of other problems as well, because you're constantly giving into what other people want to do, even if you don't actually want to do it. Sometimes this may be a need to avoid conflict, but again, it's going to be overwhelming and take a toll on you after a while. And some people may intentionally or even unintentionally start taking advantage of you because you're not speaking up for yourself. They might assume that, oh, this person's okay with doing this because I asked them to do it and they said yes, even though you don't want to, but you're not telling them that you don't want to. So again, it's important to speak up, and I'll get to assertive communication in just a moment. Then there's aggressive communication. So essentially, you're only focused on your own needs when you're using aggressive communication. The other person might be bullied, and their needs are ignored. And again, you're not really getting your point across. Sometimes if we're being yelled at, there's a good chance we're tuning out. We're not even listening to everything. We might even just simply be scared. So it's even harder to pay attention what the other person's asking for. If we're using aggressive communication, we're also probably not communicating clearly enough. And again, this can also cause problems in relationships as well, which is why it's important to use assertive communication. So this emphasizes the importance of both people's needs. You're able to stand up for your own needs and wants and feelings, but also listen and respect the other person as well. Typically with assertive communication, we have confidence and a willingness to compromise. So this doesn't mean you're completely giving in to the person, but you guys are willing to come to an agreement through assertive communication. This includes listening without interruption, clearly stating your needs and wants. Again, that willingness to compromise, standing up for yourself, confident in your tone and your body language, and good eye contact. I know one of our members here at IVAC kind of already touched on healthy boundaries, so I'll kind of keep this section brief. But again, this is important information to keep in mind. Healthy boundaries. So boundaries essentially fall on a continuum, and there are different types of boundaries. With that, it's important to learn how to set those boundaries, and there are several advantages of healthy boundaries with other people. So again, with the boundary continuum, so there's the realm of healthy, and then there's rigid and weak. So when we're rigid, we're completely inflexible, which this can kind of limit our ability to form healthy relationships. If we're cut off from everyone else and we're not willing to compromise, they're not going to necessarily want to talk to us, or they're going to get frustrated because they're trying to communicate with us, but we're closed off and we're limiting that interaction. And then weak boundaries, so very passive, not considering your own needs, doing what other people want. Again, this is going to be stressful and overwhelming and definitely take a toll on us, which is why we want to be, somewhere in the middle, in that healthy range. So again, we're able to be assertive, directly ask for what we need. We're very clear about what we need and what we want. We could say no without feeling bad. We could also respect other people's limits and boundaries. So again, boundaries isn't just about us, but recognizing other people's boundaries and respecting that as well. And again, I think this was already touched on just a couple months ago. But again, there are different types of boundaries. It's really important to be mindful of that and to recognize when those boundaries are being violated and when to speak up and when to do something about it. So just a kind of quick, simple way to kind of set those boundaries, again, define. So identify the desired boundary. Your boss is asking you to work later than you're supposed to, and you're not getting paid overtime. Like, hey, sorry, my work time ends at 6 o'clock. I'm done at 6 o'clock, and keeping that. Because maybe they just assume that you're willing to work late and work extra hours, and you're okay with that. But you speak up, and they're like, "Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't realize that," and it's not a problem. And again, communicate, say what you need. If you're very vague and kind of all over the place, people aren't going to really know what your boundary is, what you're trying to set with them. And again, it can lead to misunderstanding, miscommunication, and they might unintentionally violate your boundary because you're not being clear about what it is that you want. Stay simple. Don't over explain, just to the point. Like, hey, sorry, I don't want to go out tonight. Very simple. They might ask why, and if you want to kind of go into that, that's okay. But you don't have to. Sometimes we get scared when we're setting a boundary, so we might start throwing out a bunch of other information that's not necessarily relevant, and we might even end up pressuring ourselves to doing the thing that we don't want to anyway. And then also set consequences. So say why it's important. And benefits. So again, this just keeps us feeling better about ourselves. It prevents future conflicts. It protects our time. It improves relationships, develops independence, making your needs as important as others. There's tons of benefits that come from maintaining healthy boundaries. And then lastly, it is okay to ask for help. So sometimes you may continue to have difficulties with improving your relationship, or you might be in a dangerous situation and not sure what to do. Regardless of your situation, it is okay to ask for help, and many resources are available, including free resources. So some of your options include professional help. So for example, seeing a mental health professional for individual and or couples therapy, or even family therapy. You may also seek help from your local church, social support system. So again, turning to family, friends, or anyone else who you're close to. Maybe you have a mentor, things like that. Just other people who you know and trust and can turn to in times where you need help and assistance. Local community organizations. So there's tons of different organizations that provide a wide range of services. For example, there are like domestic violence shelters that may provide like housing, food, classes, and other resources. And other organizations may simply provide educational classes on relationships as well. There are telephone resources. So for example, like the domestic violence hotline, their phone number is 1-800-799-SAFE, which is 7233. So 1-800-799-7233. Or you could even text them by sending the word START, START, to 88788. There's other online resources as well. I have a list of some of those at the end of this presentation. Definitely feel free to look into some of those resources if you might be in need. Online resources. So several organizations provide a wide range of resources online to help improve relationships, recognize the signs of abusive relationships, or provide assistance with leaving a dangerous relationship. And some of these resources may even connect you to other services as well. So again, these aren't all the resources that are available, but these are just some options if you do need help. And again, not everything may be related to domestic violence or intimate partner violence. Sometimes you might just be struggling with your relationship, and maybe it's because you didn't learn about these things before, or you're going off what you've always done. So there are other resources available to you to help you learn more about relationships and what a healthy and unhealthy relationship looks like, as well as what to do about it. All right, these are just some different websites that offer a wide range of resources. I guess feel free to take a picture or jot some of these down. They all provide a wide range of helpful information, from unhealthy to unhealthy relationships to learning more about your relationship with other people, and things like that. So that concludes everything I was intending to talk about today. I hope you learned a lot about what is unhealthy and healthy in a relationship. And thank you for your time.
Awesome. Thank you so much. This was great. And I know I say that almost every month, but that's because we have an awesome community partner that provides these presentations for our church and just the community at large. And so again, thank you so much. And for those who are tuning in and want to take notes, I encourage you to slow it down, rewind, but also on our website, pekgsu.ame.org, there will be the handout where you can also take notes on what he's saying. And one thing I really want to emphasize and highlight is the fact that he had the graphics that had healthy, unhealthy, and abusive. And some people are not quite sure the difference between unhealthy and abusive. So that was a great visual to really spell out like what are the differences, and understanding that relationships take a lot of work. And if it's unhealthy, maybe it can be worked on with couples counseling and therapy. At the same time, if it's abusive, that's when it's time to leave. And so really making that very clear. And so thank you again. This was awesome. And again, like I stated, around this holiday season where some people may be feeling lonely and maybe even trapped in relationships, platonic, professional, all of the above. And so hopefully these indicators, these signs, and this information, as well as the resources that he provided at the end, will give you the strength and resiliency that you need to live a healthy life overall. So we look forward to January. As a reminder, it will be the second Monday in January because of the New Year's Day holiday. And so we will see you all in 2024. Be blessed and have a great day.